What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Groomer podcast. I'm your host, Alex Martin, and today I'm sitting down with Cassondra Renee. She has been grooming in upstate New York for a little over a decade now. She's the owner of Club Pawsh, honestly a really cool name for a mobile business, and it is the only fear-free certified and only all-luxury mobile groomer in upstate New York. She is also a coach who speaks, does consultations, all about groomer mindset and success tips. And so I brought her here today for us to sit down and have a whole conversation about getting our minds right, how we can better prepare for success, what we're actually thinking about, and how we can dive into that a little bit deeper. So Cassondra, thank you so much for joining me today. One thing I want to brief the audience about, because we were just talking about this and it was making me chuckle, is how you got on the show today, and what prompted a lot of this. So guys, I don't know if you remember, it had to be a couple months ago, we aired an episode with another fear-free groomer talking about pricing, actually, of all things. Okay. Talking about it a lot at the Daily Groomer because we think that everyone should be charging their worth and their value. And, it's just human nature to undervalue yourself, right? We have a tendency, and I'm sure Cassondra, with your background in psychology, I feel like you can attest to this, that we have a tendency as humans to compare ourselves to others. And once you start comparing yourself to others, you start to undervalue yourself a little bit. And I think personally, that's how a lot of the pricing disparity happens in our space. Mm-hmm. But all that to say, you had commented on a post, and we had traded some DMs and got you on the show to talk about how you should be pricing as a fear-free groomer, especially. So I wanted to ask you what you were going for in kind of those comments about dilution and stuff like that before we got into any of the mindset and success tips.
Yeah. And it all goes back to like what you're saying, which we can totally tie in with mindset, is imposter syndrome. It's like an epidemic in the grooming industry. And even somebody who is fear-free was undervaluing the fear-free. And I talk about diluting it because if you offer anything, it doesn't have to be a fear-free. You can specialize in aggressive dogs. You can specialize in puppies. You can specialize in, I don't care. If you offer a luxury service like a rose petal milk bath, I don't care. If you do something unique and different, you need to stand out for that, because otherwise we've been talking about how there's been a wage stagnation in the grooming industry for over 20 years. And it's knowledge passed down. And that leads to imposter syndrome, especially if you're mobile or in home, because you don't have somebody chaperoning you, telling you like, oh, do this, do that. And then we have social media with these phenomenal groomers that are showing literal works of art. And we're comparing ourselves to that. And we're like, I don't know if this is good enough. And so if you offer anything unique, you don't have to be the best thing in the world. You have to value that. And I think one of the biggest things is because a lot of us have learned, myself included, passed down knowledge from other groomers from who knows where they learned and how long they've been doing it. And saying, okay, well, can I raise my prices $5? I can charge extra for that? Like, all of these things come from, we're doing something out of passion and love, but we don't have the business savvy to back it up. And we're thinking with our own wallet. And what that means is I'm the most expensive groomer in my city and I can't afford me. But if I were to talk about what I do with my wallet, people would agree. Yep, that's not for me. Can't afford that either. And it's asking permission rather than being like, no. You don't go into Gucci or Prada or Chanel or Coach and be like, where's your clearance rack? Like, you either straight up don't even set foot in there because you're like, they don't even have price tags on that. Like, no. Or you maybe dip your toe in, see a thing, and then run away.
Right.
And one of the biggest things, and this goes with mindset too, is Prada never apologizes for being Prada. Gucci doesn't give discounts. So if you are offering something that is unique, you need to stand by that like those big brands stand by that. Because otherwise, people are just going to agree that, oh, it's just a dog. It's my fur baby, but I'm going to only spend $45 on my 45-pound doodle. Like, but they're my fur baby and they can have the world, but because we are conditioning them, we are perpetuating this is the norm. So when people like me come out and we're like, you're going to pay me on average anywhere from like $365 to $700, depending on your dog.
Oh my God.
They're like, huh?
Okay.
Oh, and
Can I
here's
stop
why.
you for a sec?
Yeah.
So obviously I'm on the same page as you. Let me just be out there and say that up front. And I think, like I said, for people that have listened to the podcast before and seen the content, we're big promoters of raising your prices because I completely agree that I think we're undercharging as an industry. And this is not in like some sort of like exploitive way, right? It's more so, again, like Cassondra, you've been grooming for over a decade, right? And your skills and your prices should reflect that. But I have a question as you're talking about this. So as people in the audience are probably listening, they're like, oh my gosh, 300 to 700. Like I charge, 100 to 150 right now. I could never charge that much. What do you say to that?
You could, maybe not with your existing clients.
Okay.
So it's not just grooming, it's every industry. People do not plan. People go, they're like, I'm going to start a restaurant. I'm going to start this. And it's like a long forgotten thing. I have a business background. So it was always, you make a business plan before you ever do anything. And in today's instant gratification society, we're like, I'm just going to go do the thing. I just saw a post in one of the groomer groups yesterday, and they're just like, I left my job 2 months ago to start my own business, and I'm not making the money that I thought I was going to make. I think I need to eat some humble pie and go back. And it's like, you never set a foundation. Bravo for taking the risk. But so I was prepared to have to work a side job or do something or live off of, very reduced means and say no, because people were like, you want to charge what? Oh, you charge by the hour, this, that. Oh, I can't afford that. Well, can you maybe not do all those things? Can you maybe not do the facial? No, you want to hire me? This is what you get. Now, I do have an advantage for being mobile because mobile is definitely one of those build it and they will come
Right.
But anybody, it's so much hard. It's like the frog in water example, where you put a frog, I don't know where this came from, but
I know exactly where you're going to go here. Yeah.
Yeah, you put a frog in cold water and you gradually increase the temperature, they're going to end up dying. And that's the kind of the approach that a lot of groomers take, is like, let's get them in with these low things. I need the low hanging fruit, but then let's gradually increase that. Now, you don't want a dead frog. You want a frog that's like, I'm happy to be here. Let's do this. Or you want a frog that's like, oh, no, not for me.
Right.
You want those quick answers, because the faster you get a no, the faster you'll get a yes that's hell yes. And I'm only available for hell yes customers. I have a whole thing where I have a whole questionnaire that they have to fill out. And it's funny, I'll go through my software and see who filled out the questionnaire, which means they went to book an appointment. And if half the questions are filled out, they're like, oh, this isn't for me. This is too much. It's just a dog. If all the questions are filled out, but they didn't book, then it's usually because then they got to the pricing and they're like, but you have to stand by your ground.
What's the questionnaire? Like, what are some of the questions you ask?
It's, it starts off basic, like, gosh, I think about it. If hypoallergenic services are required. So it starts off easy, and then it goes to like, will there be a routine or life interruption between now and your requested appointment, because this affects them psychologically? And then I give examples of that.
Okay.
If you have to see a vet for any reason, it has to be at least 1 week prior to seeing me. And like all these other things. And so it starts to kind of get into like, why is a groomer asking these questions?
Right.
And I give a couple
of it's a filtering function, right? I mean, if they're serious about it and they're looking at the questions and they're like, okay, I can tell that Cassondra is serious here. She's Club Pawsh is serious, and I still go through with it, then you're right. Like, you're getting committed clients.
I want quality, not quantity. And that's the thing that a lot of groomers forget. And we have this, and I have my bias of these are living, breathing, sentient beings that have the cognitive capacity of a 3-year-old human child. We should treat them as such. That's my own, speaking of. But many people still hold the belief of it's a assembly line product quantity. Get them in, get them out. That's well, if you're going to charge 20, 40, 50 bucks for a dog, then your business model kind of has to be like that. So first and foremost, you have to decide who you are as a groomer, what your vision is for what you're offering. And if you want to change that, you've been like a turn them in, turn them out kind of place, and you want to move away from that, you're going to have to get used to saying goodbye. And you're going to have a decent amount of money that you can live off of or continue with a side thing until you can make that your thing. It's entirely possible. I live in Buffalo, New York. Everyone was like, Cassondra, this is a blue collar city. So to be clear, I started my grooming career in Las Vegas. So I've actually only been grooming in Buffalo, New York for 2 years. And everyone was like, this isn't Vegas. This isn't New York City. Nobody is going to spend what you're spending. I have over 22 members who pay me a monthly subscription fee, whether I see their dog or not, and 1 cat. Like if I have them on an every 6-week plan, I don't see them every month, but I get their money every month. And some of these people are paying me upwards of $568 a month. Some of them are paying as low as like $178, but still, that's a lot more than most people are paying for a whole groom. So you have to, anybody can do this. You just have to be really clear. And this goes right into mindset. You have to be really, really clear. What is your business? Is your business?
How do you figure that out?
It's what lights you up and where you want to take that direction.
Because like I can tell you're very passionate, like you're very into like the fear-free stuff. You're very into like very high quality service. Like I think you said you even only take 3 dogs a day, right? So like it seems like you've done a pretty good job at niching down, right?
Yeah.
But I know a fair amount of new owners, kind of like what we were talking about at the beginning, just kind of jump in, even if they have a plan and they're like, I need to pay rent. Like I need to make money, right? And that's why I think also in mobile, where like, you know, people aren't even setting their routes and they're just like, I'll take any dog right now. And then as we later, I'll kick them out. So how do you, I would imagine some people wrestle with that in the beginning. Like, yes, no, I know I don't even want to take this doodle, but I have to make money.
Sure. And I've done that too. But just keep in mind, it's multifaceted. You need to get really clear on who you are, not just as a groomer, but who you are as a person, where you struggle with boundaries or where you struggle with making decisions, or if you're too impulsive, which I'm very impulsive, it's not faulting you, it's just understanding so that you know what kind of bumpers and things you need to put in place so that you can function appropriately. Being a business owner, aka solopreneur, solo groomer, is not the same as being a groomer. And you first have to get really clear on, I struggle with boundaries, or I struggle with pushback, which is boundaries. But, you know, and then you can kind of align that with what your vision is for what you want to do. Maybe you're not doing it yet. Maybe you're not doing luxury treatments or whatnot, but you want to. Great. Have that goal in mind. Then take the time, create a plan, create all the what if scenarios, get a pen and paper and brainstorm and just let it free flow and see what comes out of you. You'll be amazed at what comes out of you. And I'm not talking digitally. There's a magic that happens when your brain outsources to your hands. So like old school pen and paper. Get that all hashed out. Even maybe role play with a friend or somebody like that. You have to. I know it can be so frustrating and there can be toxic salons. I get it. I've been there. I've literally been screaming, like literally face to face with my CEO. I understand. I've been there. You have to make the time to create a game plan. And you have to really know your numbers. It's boring. It's the things that we don't excel at because we are not numbers people necessarily. We're not people. We like the dogs. We love what we do. We want to do that. And the faster you can outsource and hire somebody, if you do not have the capacity or ability to do that, outsource what you need. Hire a business coach. Hire somebody to help you put a game plan together. That's what I've done for some of my clients. I've also hired a business. When I started Club Pawsh, it's not my first rodeo, but it's the biggest thing I've ever done. And I was like, who is letting me do this? I paid $7,500 to a woman who knows nothing about grooming, but she was able to keep reining me in because I needed that extra structure. So you really have to create that structure for yourself and then get really good at saying no. I remember when you are solid on who you are, what you're doing, where you're going, it's going to make it a lot easier to deflect and be like, oh, not aligned, not aligned. And I have also taken the clients I didn't want to take. I had one client, I was on the phone with her for almost an hour. And she's like, oh, yeah, we were looking for somebody who was less than what we're paying. And of course, it was a doodle that was matted. And I was comfortable and confident that she wasn't going to sign up with me. Great. And at the very end, right when we were about to get off the phone, she's like, yeah, let's book it. I should have said, no, let's not. I don't think this is going to be a right fit. You've already given me all the red flags. I know. Yeah. But I was like, well, I could use the money. And I've already told her no. So this is on her. Every time we make an exception, we're reminded why the rule exists. And you have to stick with that. And if that means getting a side job, eating some humble pie, and working part-time, where you previous are, or delaying, like, if you are stressed, it is going to make having your own business 10 times more stressful. Mm-hmm. The dogs are going to sense it. You're going to get frustrated. You don't know what you don't know, which is even more frustrating. And then having all those learning curves, you have to take the time to plan. Now, if you're somebody who has the luxury of planning as you go, God bless you. You still need somebody. You still need that cheerleader or that guidance, because if you can avoid all the scrapes, the bruises, the cuts along the way, that are usually the things that gobsmack people and are like, I can't do this. I got to go back to a salon, or I got to switch careers entirely, burnout. If you're not somebody with that fortitude, like, you need that buffer. Mm-hmm. And there's no shame in that. Like, I've done it too,
Do you, so like with that client that you talked on the phone with for an hour, she came in for an appointment. Did she end up coming back or no?
She stalks me on social media in a good way. Yeah. No, I've never groomed her dog since. And okay. I had told her, goes by the hour. You want to keep him fluffy, we can keep him fluffy. But I don't know how long it's going to take. And this may result in us dividing it into separate appointments if he can't handle it. Now, keep in mind, I'm not brushing, demanding. I am loading him up with conditioner and really working that in. So I'm doing it in an ethical and humane way.
Right.
But people don't do it because it takes forever.
Right.
And so I'm getting bombarded with, hey, are you almost done? And I send picture text messages throughout the process so that they can see, because, it's different. You send them off to a salon. They're there for 4 or 5 hours, out of sight, out of mind. You're sitting in their driveway and they also know that you charge hourly. They're like, so she's texting me, and I finally texted her. I was like, you do realize the more you take me away from your dog, the longer this is going to take, right? I mean, I'll text with you all night if you want. And she's like, I don't want my husband to get involved, and he's home. And so she starts freaking out. I'm like, oh, this is a situation where you didn't communicate.
Got it.
That's not my problem. I ended up in their kitchen with their dog back, ecstatic, loved it. Her husband is saying, this is ridiculous. I don't want to pay. It was like 300 something. So it wasn't even, for my scope of things, it wasn't even that big a deal. And he was like, I wasn't expecting this. We hired you because it was supposed to be cheaper. And I had to say, in this man's home, in his kitchen, what transpired between you and your wife is not my business. Oh, I told her I was the most expensive groomer in town. I actually tried to, I had to throw the wife under the bus in their house. So
safe to say you fired that client.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even, it was kind of just everything worked itself out. I didn't have to fire them. They weren't coming back.
How do you, 2 questions for you. One, how do you avoid things like that? Like, obviously, like, you're someone who's pretty mindful and, pretty like planned, let's call it, like pretty prepared for stuff like that, yet still happens, right? And we're all human. Sure. At the end of the day, like, we're all human. It still happens, especially when you've got fur babies involved and, emotions and stuff like that. So we almost have to prepare for that sort of stuff to happen. How do you deal with it once it does, right? Like, how do you prepare to deal with the after effects?
Yeah, it's acceptance. Accepting that I did something I shouldn't have. And if it's not too late, it's okay to be like, hey, you know what? I thought about it. My gut's telling me something. And if they want to have a problem with you saying that your gut, you have an issue with it or whatever, and they want to blast you on social media, that's their thing. But something that nobody can ever argue with is facts and opinions, because yours is your own. And if you're saying, look, from our conversation, something didn't feel right, and I enjoyed talking with you, but uh, I don't think in the end this is gonna. If you can nip it in the bud, which I should have done,
Yeah.
I don't think in the end you're gonna be happy, because we're already starting out at a higher price point, and because we both know your dog is matted, we know it's gonna be more. Now we can't forecast that, but if you have second guessing, it's okay to say, you know what? Because the thing that we tend to forget is, as groomers, we have a higher sense of intuition than most people out there.
Yeah.
It's why we're so good at what we do. It's why we're drawn to it. You need to trust that. One of the things I would coach my groomers about is, if you feel something's off, if you show up to this house and something's not right, especially if you're an in-home groomer, you are extraordinarily vulnerable. Now take that to the working thing. The dogs are going to sense it. If you're stressed, if the parents are stressed, that's one of my questions, is like, I want to know if you have a stressful environment, because I want to know what kind of animal is coming to me.
Right.
So when you have those situations, you just have to accept, I did this and now I have to deal with it. And that's a really hard thing, because a lot of people do not have that self-aware, like are not self-aware to realize, I accepted this, I'm going through with it. That doesn't mean you have to follow through, but you do have to give yourself the grace and understanding of like, well, this is a learning experience, and how do we move through that? And then that's where you go back to the drawing board. I am constantly adding to my terms and conditions, and it is very long. And I'm constantly like, well, that was a lesson.
Yeah.
New policy, boom, done. And just having that flexibility, having the backbone, and really just being like, I messed up.
Yeah.
Sucks. But you know what? I'm human, and I'm going to learn from this, and I'm not going to make that mistake again. And just really giving yourself that kind of talk and that grace. So it's a lot of different things: forgiveness, grace, self-awareness, that we're not necessarily very good at.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, acceptance seems to be the core of a lot of our problems and like the resolutions, right? I
Yeah.
mean, everything from, a bad client experience to even just like a bad day, all of that sort of stuff, the quicker we can accept it, that like it's okay, and then move on, that we can learn from it, seems to be better in the long run.
That and kind of putting, my grandma used to do this with me when I was little, and I think about it when I get into hard times. Put a protective bubble around you. I mean, like, while I'm in this space, this is the situation. What can I control? What's in my bubble? What can I control? What's outside of my bubble? I can't control that. You have to be good with what you can do.
Right.
And whatever's going to come at you outside of that bubble, okay, I'm going to go back in my bubble. Like,
Oh, Renee knew what she was talking about.
yeah. Yeah.
You talked about in the beginning of the episode, when I asked you something about like how you figure out your needs. You said, "What are you passionate about?" Now, obviously, that sounds really good from the beginning, right? When I'm setting out and I want to make money and go out on my own and do this thing maybe I've dreamed about for a long time, like, yeah, the passion is alive and well, right? But I'm sure it starts to fade over time. And I'm curious, again, with your background, which we never really spent much time on, but you've got the psychology background and you've done such a great amount of coaching. I'm curious, like, what can we do? Is it avoidable, like this, like burnout, or is it not avoidable? But what we can do is plan and prepare for what happens on when we feel it. I mean, talk to me a little bit about burnout, what we can do to be better about it.
For sure. Taking social media diets is helpful.
Like dopamine resets.
Yeah, like not holding yourself to that. I just had something top of my mind, and it just left. Have you heard of a SWOT analysis?
Yeah, like the strengths, weaknesses. Was that
Opportunities and threats.
and threats? Okay.
So it's something they teach us early on in business school that nobody ever does. And it's really, really important. And one of my programs, we do a SWOT analysis for your business and a SWOT analysis about yourself. Again, clarity. What am I good at? What do I suck at? What do I need help with? And having the ability to ask for help. What I love is that there's all these groomer groups that are like, hey, you can ask a question. What I hate is the keyboard warriors who make people go, I don't want to ask anything. Knowing what you're good at, knowing what you suck at, and then outsourcing, getting the help. Even if it's somebody on marketing, you go to Fiverr and you spend $20-$30 to have somebody like help you with social media or make a flyer or a logo or something that like maybe you're not good at that. Outsource as quickly as you can. And I'm a hypocrite because my mentor has told me that forever. But then you're like, but I don't have the money. Barter. There are ways. I hate.
Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Oh no, I was just saying, I hate cleaning my van.
Oh, okay.
If somebody were to have told me that you actually have about like 40 ceilings, not just one, because of all the cabinets and cubbies and all that stuff, I would have been like, maybe I'll actually just go to a salon. I hate it. I absolutely hate it, but it has to get done, right? And I barter with a woman who has a dog and she has a cleaning business. And she also is very much like me. She can't afford herself either.
Right.
So we have a system in place where I groom her dog every month. She deep cleans my van every month. It gives me the slack where I can of maintain it. So bartering is a great way. Like delegating as much as you can so that you can focus on, because that's exactly it. We get into it because we're really great at one thing, but there's 20 other things that are required if you're going to have a business. But we don't even know anything about half of them and we suck at the other ones. What do? Burnout happens when you take on too much. And so we having to be able to delegate what you can and then trim the fat. Okay, maybe I don't offer all these things because I can't afford the overhead to offer all these things. Or maybe I don't expand into all these areas just yet. Like finding a way to scale it down, have satisfaction, build success there, and then grow it. Because each time you get those small incremental wins, it builds confidence, it builds strength, and it becomes second nature because you're like, okay, I'm doing this, it's working, I'm seeing the fruit of my labor. But we have all these big aspirations and these big dreams, and we're like, I'm gonna do all the things, and we're like, I'm gonna
I mean, it's
stay home today.
It's overwhelming. Yeah. And like honestly, I love that you brought that up because like, any sort of like advice segment or even coaching, like all of that stuff, we're all open to, I think, like as humans, like we're all like, yes, like I want to hear like what I should be doing. But when you start hearing all these shoulds, they start looking like a lot of can'ts because they keep adding up on this list of like, all these things that you should be doing.
And I love that you said should, because you know what? It sounds like some other S word. Stop shoulding on yourself. If you are being shoulded on, it's probably not good. It's probably not for you. So Thank you so much for saying that, because that's a huge buzzword, is like, you should do this, you should do that, you should do that. Unless this is somebody who has walked a mile in your shoes prior to you, knows everything, knows what you're dealing with at home, knows the things that you know, and knows what you don't know. Like, don't listen to them.
Yeah. Hey, Cassandra, you would love this. I have on my mirror in my bathroom every morning in Expo marker, I said, it's written, should's a shitty word.
Yes.
And I don't cuss a lot, but it's on my mirror every morning. And I see that. And it reminds me that you're 100% right. People that are giving you shoulds, they don't know anything about your life. And no one knows the full picture, right?
No, nobody.
So every should be taken with a grain of salt. But all that to say, back to the original point of like, everything, like there's so many things that like, A, only so much of them are important, but B, there might be some important things that are just overwhelming because you don't want to do at your core. And so finding someone to like cleaning your van. And my question when I rudely interrupted you was going to be, what are some things that you constantly think about or do to this day outsource, like practical things? Like you said, cleaning your van is a great example.
I batch my social media because I can't stand it. And so I set aside time during the week to like, this is my day, I gotta do that. Returning phone calls. Right now I'm at the point where I do a lot of it myself, but I dedicate time. I actually make time in my schedule so that it feels like, okay, this is my office day. Because if you're trying to do mobile and office in the same day, I don't return phone calls. Time goes by, they find another groomer, it happens. But if I section it off like, this is my office day, I'm going to do this, and then kind of break it up. And also, I sit in different rooms of the house. So it's almost psychologically like I'm taking on a different role. I'm going to this different place.
I like that. Oh, that's cool. That's so simple. And that probably does play a pretty good psychological role on you.
It does. It gives you that break from the monotony of the drudgery of like, I've got to do this and this. Also, I have a massive to-do list, and I look at my schedule every week, and I look at what's realistic, which is very difficult for me. And my significant other, I'm very lucky. He's really good at that. I'm really bad at that. So I make him come over and be like, this is the dog. I've got this dog. There's that one. Can I actually do this? I have to ask him because I am my own worst enemy, because I'm like, yes, I can. Yes, I can. And then I'm like, I can't do anything. And this sucks. So, and
then you start getting in your own head too about like capabilities and like, maybe I'm not pushing myself hard enough. Like maybe I should be doing this. Like who says, right? Can you do this? Right.
Yep. And it's really just coming down to the basics. What are your non-negotiables? What do you need to fill up your cup? I love the analogy. You can't pour from an empty cup. So parents out there, like, you're doing your kids, just a side note, you're doing your kids a really big disadvantage if you're like constantly giving and never making time for yourself, because you're becoming the martyr, and you're just showing them one of two things: either how to be a martyr, or you're showing them that they're entitled and the world revolves around them. Either way, not really helping them. You have to set aside time for what your non-negotiables are so that you can show up as yourself. Like mine are my meditation in the morning, my whole spiritual practice that I have, and just having quiet. And my significant other, it's hard because he gets up before I do, and he's like, my brain's already going. I want to talk about all the things. And I'm like, you talk to me, I will be angry, and then my dog will be stressed, and then I will be home late, and then we won't get any time together. So no. And you have to know yourself. You have to have your non-negotiables so that you can, that's how you build yourself up. That's how you charge your batteries.
I mean, honestly, like a big takeaway I'm having right now is, and I might add it to my calendar to do this week, of doing like a SWOT analysis on myself. Yeah. Right. So how do you set that up, just like from a practical perspective? Am I writing down a list of all my strengths, all my weaknesses, my, opportunities and my threats?
Yeah. And your opportunities can look like, it could be something as benign as, there's the fall festival this weekend. I have an opportunity to go there. I also have an opportunity to, I don't have work this day. I have an opportunity to do work things. So opportunities can look like that. Threats can look like I have this health issue that I'm dealing with, or the flu's going around, or it can be, my credit card bill's coming up and I want to go do this. So that way you're looking at, you're just giving yourself a broader picture of where you are. And it's really good to do this often.
Okay.
I do these. So I'm very much like a moon person. So I do these every 2 weeks, on the full and which today happens to be a full moon, on the full and the new moon. I like to do those because it helps me center myself. And it's great if you journal them down on an actual piece of paper, because every once in a while you want to have a really good laugh and go back and look at the ones you did. And I'm like, I've been writing this down for 8 weeks. Haven't done it. Yeah. But that's a really good assessment too, because then I also like to do these annually, like a full scope, because you go back, and the biggest thing is, guys, leave the judgment outside the door. Like, you really have to give yourself a lot of grace in this, because this is how you learn. And this is not just a self perspective, but also a business thing too, which I would advise you, I'm not going to shit on you, I would advise you to do it in your business as well, because this is how we learn. So if there's been something that's been on your list, and every time you write it, it's been on your list, it's been on your list, it's been on your list, and it's still on your list and nothing is getting done, that's probably a not now. And a perfect example. My other half and I we're 39. So biological clock is ticking. We don't have any human babies yet, and we want them. And we just bought the house in July, and my focus just went into turbo mode. And I was like, I have to launch these other businesses, and I have to really ramp up my coaching because I need more money so that way I can be a stay-at-home mom, and blah, 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 blah. And I've got to do this by January. I was going crazy. We were getting into a lot of arguments because I kept saying, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I had to let that go. And that's a really hard thing if you're like, you want children. And this is a really severe example. So I hope that those who are listening are kind of compare this down to something smaller. But this is a really extreme example of learning to be peaceful and happy. Because guess what? If you have a cranky relationship that's really on the rocks, not a good time to have kids. You get a kid, throw that in the mix, not going to get any better.
Right.
And so I had to come back, pare it down. What makes you happy? What makes you whole? Fill up your cup. Where can you find the sense of joy and peace? And the thing is the universe, funny enough that my other half is a plumber, because I've been saying this before I met him. The universe wants to give you, whether God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, we are divine extension of what made us. And we are meant to have our goals and our dreams fulfilled. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we all climb Mount Everest. Maybe your Mount Everest is a large hill a couple hours away. Cool. It doesn't mean that it shows up the same for everybody, but it means that we can still scale it to what fits our life and get the same amount of joy, because every single thing that we do in life comes back to a feeling. How does it make me feel? You play the little kid, play the 2-year-old kid, but why? But why? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Why am I doing that? Every single thing will always come back to a feeling. Always. Once you can come down to that, you can be happy in life because you're feeling that. Now, sorry, I know I'm going all over the place, but I'll bring it together. When you can trace that back, then you can start scaling your business smaller. You get all these grand ideas. How can I feel happy? How can I reach these objectives here and now? So you do all these SWOT analysis, you look at all these things, and you've been shooting on yourself for an entire year or longer, and maybe you got to let that go, because it's called the law of vacuum. Once you remove, I tell people, like, you're on vacation and you have a shelf that's dedicated to all your tchotchkes from when you went on vacation. Well, is it a coincidence that your shelf is completely full, can't hold another thing, and you also don't have the ability to go anywhere? Once you free something up, we are created to fulfill our goals and our desires, and we're meant to. Otherwise, why would we have them? But we sometimes get overloaded with all of the things, whether it be work or the shoulds or the wants and the desires, and we plug up the hole. When you start to remove all of those things, those to-dos, the goals, this, and just get back to that, why am I doing this in the first place? What do I really want? It unclogs that drain and water rushes through. Like, how many times do opportunities find you when you weren't even thinking, and they're like the best things?
Right.
Because it's like, you'll never find the one until you're happy with yourself. Well, I thought I was freaking great. I thought I was a great cat. I didn't realize all the other things. So, like, all the best things, it happens when you're not looking, right? Well, it does, because you're opening yourself up, because you're not overloading yourself with I gotta do all this stuff so I can have a baby. You know what? I guarantee you, even if we tried, it would be the most complicated pregnancy, or there would be lots of failures in the process, because I didn't have the capacity to have it, because
you're elsewhere.
20 different directions. So scaling it down, we're just as happy as we were when we first met, because I had to get over myself.
Yeah.
I had to say, you know what? When the time's right, it's going to happen. And clearly the time's not right now. And let's focus on this. Let's focus on getting things running smoothly. And it's really, really hard to take that analysis. But like, when you create those SWOT analysis and you have that history of it, you can go back and be like, you know what? I've been writing this a lot. Maybe it's time to have a goodbye ceremony. Maybe we say, you know what? I've been putting this off for 5 years. Either I need to just really sit down and make a plan and be like, this is how we're going to do it. Or, you know what, let it go and watch how things speed up faster. And maybe that thing will come back and it'll be ready like way faster because you were blocking it, if that makes sense.
Oh, no. I mean, oh my gosh. Like, I'm going to cut that clip out and go watch that every week. I mean, that was incredible, Cassondra. And I think we should end there as to not delve too deep into anything else, because I think that was a perfect note to recap all like everything we've been talking about.
Sure.
I mean, gosh, that's extremely motivating. I'm very energized right now for the rest of my day. Honestly, just after this conversation, you've given me a lot of things to talk about. I kept muting myself during that because I was just taking notes on the side of stuff I want to go do now. Cassondra, thank you so much. I mean, you are such a positive vibe, and I didn't even get to congratulate you on 2 years at Club Pawsh either.
Thank you.
I mean, that's such a feat, and so I hope you get to celebrate a little bit today.
Yeah,
maybe this
and that's but it's funny you say that. Thank you. Because just like that, if I were running the show without having somebody in my corner to be like, no, 6 o'clock, laptop's down, you're doing a thing, I would push, and I would burn out, and I have done that. So I can be my very own hypocrite, and it's going back to like, oh wait, outsource, get that help, get that accountability partner. Sorry, I can go on and on and on.
No, I love it. I mean, we'll have to have you come back on, because this was really, like I said, super energizing, and I feel like the audience will grab a lot of value from this. I mean, I grabbed a lot of value from it, as I was just saying. So thanks so much, Cassondra.
Yeah, absolutely.
If people want to find you, Instagram, I know you're pretty active over there.
Yeah, I have to apologize to anyone interested in coaching, because I do have a lot on my plate, and I only coach quarterly. And come January, I'm actually putting together a subscription. Okay. So all that to say, my Instagram for coaching looks pretty crappy, because I'm like, I hate social media. I'm just terrible at it. And I've trained myself to be diligent for my grooming business, coaching not so much. So my apologies to anyone who is interested in that. Yes, you can find me on Instagram. I'm very quick to respond. Just not really quick to like post stuff. So hit me up on Instagram, or Facebook.
What's your handle?
So for coaching, it's going to be Unlimited Groomer. And I don't teach grooming skills, but if you somehow are listening to this in the Buffalo area, Club Pawsh, like all of my social media is Club Pawsh. Okay. Same with my website and my app. But yeah. Cool. Yeah. And then, just a quick little plug, if I may, because I work with a lot of large breeds and seniors. I have higher turnover than most. And a couple weeks ago, I officially launched Pawsh's Memories, which is social media, same, Pawsh's Memories, PAWSICOUS. And I take their hair and I create resin pet memorial statues. So if you have a client that you want to create a gift for a longtime client that's passed away, maybe you saved up some hair or they have some hair, it's a really good gift idea. That's another thing I got going on.
You really do have a lot on your plate.
I do. But yeah, at Unlimited Groomer is probably the most likely place people want to find me. You can also email me at unlimitedgroomer@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cassondra. I really appreciate you once again.
You're welcome. Thank you. This has been a blast.
Awesome. That's the pod.